Hi everyone, I'm Vicky and I am the QA team leader for PNMsoft. I would like to welcome you to this webinar on Sequence Messages. I would like you to keep your inboxes open. We are going to share the workflow experience with you. Please ask your questions as they come up. We would like to keep the webinar at an interesting pace. As usual, the webinar and all the materials will be published on the members portal. Shlomo, it's yours.
Hi everyone, this is Shlomo. I'm the support team leader for PNMsoft, and we're going to cover today is messaging in Sequence. So like Vicky said, we're past the housekeeping items, and let's go dive straight into it. First of all, the theory. Very involved, not very favorite slide of mine with a lot of details. But if you want to translate it into practical language, process participants must be able to craft messages, etc. Essentially what it's saying, if it's ugly, people won't read it. The message content has to incorporate in-process data and metadata. I want to know who did what, and when. And if it's important, I want to make sure that it's in bold red colors. The message must be able to be routed automatically and manually, etc. It's always a balance between sharing information so that everybody knows what's going on, but not spamming everybody, because people really don't want an update every time a button is clicked somewhere. But they do want the major ideas. The ability to dynamically route messages on the fly is part of the bigger picture of the intelligent BPM, the iBPM, that the Sequence Suite is proud to be rated as. And if anybody would like any details on that, that would be a separate offline matter. I'd be happy to help. Queuing, we'll get to that in a bit. Messages. Receivable in a variety of formats. This is critical for your mobile users, typically your managers, so that they can read it on their iPhone or BlackBerry or whatever tablet that they have on the road at the airport, and not in complicated, long-winded forms which they really have nothing to do with until they're parked, which could delay things naturally. The messages need to include relevant metadata to alert people of their priority. Again, the right messages, the important messages, have to stand out above the rest in their priority and in their due dates. Everything has to be made clearly. In today's overloading of information era, we really want to make sure that the right stuff comes out on top and not just as a big loud background noise. And last, the message must be linked to the processes, etc. Essentially, it's a breadcrumbs trail. Just like Hansel and Gretel, if you put out information, if you send out emails and updates to people which will inevitably contain what you think is the important information, always make sure that the user can easily and conveniently link back into the relevant workflow instance, the relevant process or request or whatever it is, so they can get there and so they can actually continue or get more information as needed. I want to share two stories with you, the right way and the wrong way to do things. I had the opportunity in the past to need to send a bunch of signed documents, very important ones, to a big organization, a person in a big organization. That big organization naturally will receive only mail, physical mail, not registered mail or anything that you can track. And so I had to go and drop it off at the post office. Gave it to the person behind the teller, and they threw it in what looked to me like a basket, not unlike a trash bin. And they said, yes, it will be sent. You can go away now. I didn't have any updates for 5 days on the status of the package. I had no idea if and when it would be delivered. During that time, because of the importance, after day 3 or 4, I already had started pinging the recipient, asking, well, what's going on, and nagging on what's going on. And eventually I called the person and said, yes, I have the package. Thank you very much. That's the bad experience. A good experience that I had at a different time in the past was with a courier, with a physical package, not a small thing. Courier came to pick it up. That's convenient, but aside from the matter, the moment that he took the package, he put a barcode sticker onto it, scanned it in, and wrote in my mobile phone number and email address. So at the moment, almost the moment he had it in his hand, I already had a message with a URL, with a reference number, with a tracking map, so I can actually see where it is and where it was going all the time. I got an email when it reached the last logistics depot in the country where it was supposed to get to, so that the people could, I knew it was about to get there. And I got a text message when it was actually signed for. So I knew exactly where it was along the way, and I was able to call the person that was supposed to receive it, a happy gift recipient, within minutes of them opening up the box. So you can see the two extremities of what you want and you don't want in the information aspect of your workflow. The theory of it is very simple. You want to give your user just enough information, like the Goldilocks story, not too hot, not too cold, just right down the middle. This webinar we're going to be covering, these are the general agenda points. We're going to give you a live example of the messaging abilities, what we can show off in a single email. We're going to cover the content, HTML, etc. We're going to cover the recipients, how we can send recipients by process role to managers and other items. We're going to show the mechanism for one-click action as part of the message action options and the time management, the due dates. We're going to show what priority and headers we can add and other things we can add to the message properties. And also as part of the first one and the others, the attachments, the different options for attachments in Sequence. So, while Sequence doesn't deliver physical packages, I am going to try and show you what we can do, and then how to do it through the workflow design studio. Let's go leave the theory and step into the world of practice. I created a workflow called Messages Webinar. It's a very linear, very simple affair. The idea is an initial purchase request that we'll get to, and we'll share with you the receipt for that form. It will go to the requester's manager or their manager above them, depending on the price. If it's approved, it will go to the purchasing team, and then the initial purchaser will get a verification that the item has been taken care of and purchased, and the workflow ends. Each of these steps is meant to demonstrate, of course, it isn't to show you how to create a purchase request, is designed to create it to be part of the storyline and to demonstrate specific functionalities in the Sequence messaging options. So let's kick it off with the first one, with the purchase request. The form itself is of course radically oversimplified to keep it simple. The idea in this, like anything else, you would have the person's detail on top, which division they belong to, the priority that they allocate to their request, any comments that they might have, specifications, etc., and a list of products that they would like the company to buy for them. So in this case, if we go for the mundane, again, not terribly automated process. I want a single table for $100 as it is. I'll add that record in. I could add as many as I want to over here into the grid. By the way, for those of you unfamiliar, this is the Sequence Kinetics interface. The forms are one of several changed items and a whole subject unto themselves. So we filled out this oversimplified form, and we want to move it on to get our receipt, as it were, the verification that we sent off the email, and to have it sent off to to our manager. So each of you should get a copy of this. I'm going to open up my own message, and then we'll move on. Would be better if I showed it to you over here. These are the previous instances, of course, from the testing. We'll show our instance over here, 1643, 1643 should be sent any minute now. The intervals, of course, in reality, when you send these messages would be significantly longer. You'd probably have a processing time not to seriously impair the performance. So we got a bunch of emails over here. We have to look at it both in our capacity as the fictitious manager as well. We're looking at it as Michael Britton's manager over here in the workflow. We have all the emails that are coming to us as Tricia Harper and the others, and as ourselves as Michael Britton. So, like I said, if we look at the first one, purchase request 1643 has been initiated. Let's go over what we can and what we have customized over here. The from field, and you'll be familiar with this. Anybody that has even older versions of Sequence can be customized to whatever you want, whatever email you want, and very soon in the future, it will actually even be customizable up to the specific user. So when I send to user A, to John Smith, then he will see a from field that's equivalent to his division or his whatever department as the sender. And when I send to Jane Doe, to somebody else, she will see her relevant from field over there. As you can see, there are many different ways to do it. The entire experience over here of the form can be, you can do anything you want to it. Essentially, Sequence sends the raw information to the background runtime service, and you can change it as you will. The background, the fonts. I tried to demonstrate over here as best I could the HTML abilities. The color, that ugly blue color, is on purpose to show it as a contrast. You can add in tabbing, paragraphs, images, bold, whatever, anything you can do in HTML, you can do over here. You can see the message itself and the subject include metadata from within the workflow. The workflow number is included over here, especially for people that get very high volumes. This is where the recognition will come in. Oh yes, process number whatever, request number something, and this will continue to reappear in the different steps of the workflow as we go along. And the last thing, of course, and you might probably see it over here, for anybody that is not familiar with Sequence Kinetics, the attachments. The ability to include variety of attachments has been greatly improved in Sequence Kinetics, and we have over here too. We have a very, very, very simplified text-based attachment, the content of which is taken from the workflow data and metadata. But I didn't put much into that. I wanted to show you the cooler thing, the ability to create a PDF attachment for your typically less technological users. You want to give them something they can, even as unecological as it is, print out or save a copy of or file somewhere. The PDF is what is the trail to do it. The PDF that we generated over here is based on an open source library that allows you to take their DLL and store and put it onto the Sequence application server, and from within a very simple code, which we'll get to in a bit, you call the DLL that they provided for you, and you can get all this functionality. So you'd want to put in, of course, with your business logo. In our case, I used our own, and take whatever details you want to take from the workflow. Add in whatever I did, lorem ipsum over here to simulate the legal information, and breadcrumbs. Like I said before, you want to make this linkable back to the workflow. Now, of course, you can type it in. You can give somebody a long and involved URL to type in, or you can do like what you're doing over here, since you're creating a PDF document, which is essentially a mixture of text and tables and images. Generate a QR barcode link back to the workflow. You should all have a copy of this PDF by you, and if you try it out, for anybody that has a smartphone or any other application that reads QR codes, you can actually link back. You'll see the link back to the Sequence inside this. You can add in, of course, this is a simplified version. You can add in anything you choose. The idea being this opening option allows you to do whatever you want. Let's go over quickly. Let's move over to questions if anybody has, and then we'll move on with the next steps in the workflow. Let's have a look. Just a second. All right, we'll have to take those that we have, do them offline. Let's have a look at the wizard, how we created this activity over here. So we're back to the Sequence App Studio. Let's have a look at the request received. So what we saw over there, the end result that we saw over there was purchase request number something has been initiated. The something is a simple sequence expression. For those of you that have experience with Sequence 6, it's a lot of it is the same. There's been some additional options added, but any sequence expression that you can write, you can include in the sequence messages. Within the text itself over here, I want to show you a couple of important options. First of all, you can, of course, if you have a terrible liking for it, you can edit the raw HTML to fit whatever requirement that you have, styling and anything else. And you have the option, of course, to send the email in the first place as plain text. Never seen anybody do that before, by the way, but the option is of course there. The validation of this, of course, you don't have to write this any of this manually. You type in whatever the proper English validation for the proper English wording for the text. Everything else comes like in any of the older versions from the tree over here. So we're done with that. You can add a hyperlink if you'd like, a manually generated hyperlink also based on processed data and metadata. Typically this would be to an external system for an update or for a read on what's going on. And of course, the important bit that we want to look at over here is the attachments. We had two attachments in the email. You can see it in your inbox. One based on the simple text attachment, which we won't dive into so as not to waste time. The second, the PDF. In order to get that done, in order to implement this sort of code-based attachments, the steps are very simple. I wanted to use that PDF generator library, so I deployed that to the server. It's as simple as copying the DLL to the global assembly cache on the server. Again, offline. If anybody needs a bit of help with the first steps, we'll be happy to assist. You then take your own code, whatever it is you have to write. We won't cover the code over here during this webinar. It would be too quick to cover anything in detail anyways. But when I looked at it, when I reviewed it now to explain it, there aren't even 70 lines of code to the whole thing, including all the auto-generated stuff. We'll cover that. If anybody would like a one-on-one to explain what we did over here, we'll be happy to do that. And of course, we'll include the project, the .NET project, as part of the published webinar details. So you would choose from within those deployed DLLs, those DLLs that are deployed to the server. And each one of them can have any number of functions, of methods that will return a custom attachment. In this case, we have two. One for the text, one for PDF. The PDF attachment will expect a bundle of variables. We won't go over them, we'll go over all of them, but the idea is if you want to generate the file, you want to know what the name to generate for it, the content of it, and everything else that you need that's required in order to populate that file with meaningful information. And once you have that in place, what it will return essentially is a .NET object called the custom attachment object. Extremely simple to implement, and within that you can do whatever you please. In this case, create a PDF attachment. All right, so we covered this, the theory of how to add attachments. Again, if you have questions, don't be shy, ask them please. Now would be the time to do just that. Just a minute, let's see if we have anything in line over here. Okay, for those of the recipients that didn't get a copy of the email, I'm sorry, I might have included an early version, or I might have mistyped somebody's email. We will we'll resend them after the webinar. So let's move on. We got as far as requesting. We got our receipt saying thank you very much. We have your request. So we know that it's being processed. We're happy to wait patiently for 48 hours like we were requested over here. By the way, you can see the attachments. They're available also within the Sequence user interface. You don't have to wait for your email in order to see them. So our direct manager, I'm not sure why both of them got. It should have been a conditional recipient. It might be a mistake that I made. Our manager gets a request with the details. You can see the message details either through here in the interface itself. It's not very pretty, or you can look at it in the email. Let's have a look at it in the email. What we got. So Tricia got this email over here. Design is already familiar from the last one. Metadata that we had from before. But look at some of the stuff that we have over here. Michael Britton has requested the following items, and it has the table at a total cost of $100 US, and with a link back to the workflow itself. One-click action is an option over here, which we included in our emails. Instead of having to open up Sequence and then open up a task and fill out a form, if you want to have a simple, typically this would be a yes, no, approve, decline option, then the user would approve or decline from here. So let's have a look how we implemented it. If we go back to here, to the design environment. So the message, like before, it's got the metadata details. One very cool thing that's new to Sequence Kinetics is the message object. In other words, when you send out action items, it's no longer treated as a single entity that just happens to be sent off to anywhere between 1 and n recipients. Instead, each recipient has an object of its own, as a record of its own, and a life of its own, and can therefore be cast as a .NET object. So if we have the message over here, message to display name, and I can show each email going out with a display name of its own with this the simple sequence expression. We covered already the other metadata details. We saw two things. First of all, the option to show a list of items. Even if we had chosen more than just a table, if we had chosen a bunch of items, we would still have seen them one after each other, delimited by commas, using this simple sequence query. Again, if you'd like, you can take the whole project, or if you want to ask for it specifically, we'll be happy to provide it. And this is a sort of simplification that you would get if you want to show this to a manager on the road. Yes, there's all the details, the names and the IDs and the whatever, the purchase request. The bottom line is usually a lot simpler than that. What is it that you want, and how much is it going to cost me? So if the manager gets a simple request, again, in this case, the table might not have been the best idea to choose, a simple request for a bit of RAM or a bit of hard disk or something like that, that costs a conceivably little amount of money, and that could, in theory, despite that, be very much delaying work and disrupting productivity, they would have a look at this message on their own and say, okay, if it's whatever, $50 or $100, whatever that was asked for, it's not worth the delay of getting back. And even if they can't click on the link for the practical reasons of a mobile phone that doesn't support it, or whatever, or coverage, or cellular coverage that doesn't support it, they would still be able to look at it, say thank you very much, I approve, move the workflow on. Let's not delay it because of that. The very recipient themselves, in this case, is also it can also be selected. So if you have a purchase that's up to whatever, in this case I chose $5,000. I'm very generous with money that's not mine. So if you have up to $5,000, it would go to whoever your direct manager is, and if it's over $5,000, it would go an extra level up because it's more money. This is just an example, and the important thing that I wanted to show over here, and this touches on the intelligent BPM subject of hot change. Always try and keep the recipients dynamic and relative. Meaning, if I put in as a recipient over here, I put John Smith in over here, because John Smith happens to be whatever, the vice president for purchasing, and this is a whatever, $1 million request. It makes sense at this point in time under the conditions that we are right now. In a month from now, or in a quarter from now, or anything else like that, it could be no longer correct. John Smith might no longer work for the company, might have moved a job. The numbers that we're talking about might have changed. What was once upon a time a big deal might now, thankfully, after company growth, might be considered a lesser sum. And you always want to use dynamically selected and relative values over here. So the $5,000 cap wouldn't necessarily be hard-coded into the business rule like I did over here. It could be something that comes from an external source, and the recipient, far more important, the recipient would also be dynamic. So in this case, it's the direct manager or the manager's manager for whoever created it, or it could also be based on a group, which we'll have a look at in a second. So if I look at the business rule over here, it's as simple as taking the purchase request. There's an items list grid inside that, and I'm taking the sum of the cost field. And if all those items together don't reach $5,000, then it can go to my direct manager. Again, reality, you would have to do it back check to see if there are different requests flying around, so that's divided up. This is really an oversimplified case. The sums that we're looking at over here, again, this is a simple sequence expression. Now, in this case, I chose the purchase request, the creator of the purchase request, their manager. You can do the same thing for a group. So if you would have, in this, it could be based on a group, you would do the same thing. The manager of whatever, the purchasing acquisitions group would always be the recipient in case of whatever, a certain sum of money and above. And as long as you do that, as long as you keep that methodology working, hot change will work easily for you, because as people move around, as the workflow changes, everything changes around the newly created reality. So we covered that. Let's see if there are any questions. Okay. We'll take what there are no questions that are relevant to the general public over here. So we got as far as the manager approval. So we can, of course, be generous with other people's money and move on. The tree, of course, opened up again. Sorry about that. We have over here now the purchasing team. The purchasing team is a team of 3. We can see there membership over here, with myself added in as a fake user, so I can show you the emails if necessary. Eve Farberg, Barry Garcia, and Tim Oxford. Three people that that are responsible for this, and we have a couple of different ways that we can divide the work. The first option, as I set the process to work on right now, is load balancing. Essentially, what that does is it looks at who has more action items, unfinished action items on their plate, and depending on who has less, of course, the less overloaded member of the team will be the next person to receive the action item. As such, even if the person gets it, even if Barry Garcia already got this mail, they can still push it back to the team. They can still send it back to the entire team, so that if they really are overloaded, then they would just click on that, and it would go back. It would be sent to everybody else in the team. In this case, we want to, of course, we want to take it and show and continue onwards in a bit. There are a few other things that I wanted to show you over here that we set up for this. The first one is, of course, we covered it now, load balanced. The second option for sending out the emails is, in the first place, rather than sending it pre-designated for a specific member of the team, you can in advance send it to the entire team, in this case 4 people of the team, and whoever is quick to take it, to see it in their inbox, would fetch the task from their sequence inbox over here, and move on and take the task. The preference is entirely business oriented and pretty much equally divided. I want to show you another 2 options that we have over here: the due date and dynamic priorities. Let's see. There's a question that came in the middle. Just a minute. Very good question. The load balancing, as it comes out of the box, is based on 3 things: the number of action items that the members of the team have. If that happens to be exactly equal, it will go to the person that's been the longest time since they've completed an action item, and if by some odd coincidence even that's right, then it would just order it by the user ID. How would you look at it? How would you do it? By measure, there could be one action item that one person has, it's enormous, and another person might have 10 lesser ones. Recipients would have to be calculated. You would have to implement some sort of pretty nifty customization to sequence. I don't have a clear idea in my mind right now, but it's nothing. There is no way to do that outside of the box, to base it on some external criteria that you would determine. All right. Back to showing the due date. Did I receive this? Just a minute. No. The action item is currently by somebody else, so I pushed it back to the team so that I, in my capacity as a member of the purchasing team, a fake member as it were, will see it in my inbox. So I can see that please execute purchase request 1643. Go ahead and buy that table. I set the due date for a week from now. I'll show you where you do that in a minute. And so it gives me until the 7th of November to be done with it. And the priority of it, if I had chosen, and I'll show you that in a moment, if I had chosen the high priority, which I did, you'll see over here that this email comes in with the high priority mark. Now, how do you do that in Sequence? Very simple. This is all in the purchasing team's message details. This stuff we've already covered. The recipients we've covered. Over here, I can set a task due date. I set it 7 days into the future. I can add even an additional layer of complexity to that. I can do it by working time, so that if my calendar shows that my particular calendar shows that I'm on vacation for next week, then it will, of course, it will designate the time accordingly, so that the actual delay would be not 7 days, but would be whatever, 2 weeks or more with the weekend. The priority, I said over here, set mail as high priority only if, and I can add any condition, so that if I set a high priority over there in that first purchase request form, I asked it to be high, then the purchasing team will see it as high. Now, yes, realistically, everybody will set their request as high, so there's more than one way to do this. You can do this as a function of the requester's seniority. You can do it you can limit users to a certain amount of high priority requests, all sorts of different ways to do it. But the bottom line is that this allows you, if you look at the wider picture over here, we're a member of a bunch of teams. We're getting all sorts of emails coming in, but we can see this one is urgent. This one has, if you do it selectively, they all come in as standard, and one that comes in urgent, you want to see that and you want to emphasize that, so that you can take care of what needs to be taken care of early on. All right, let's see if there are any questions for this stage. Yes, we oversimplified. I oversimplified the purchasing team's form over here. There's no need to show everything in it. It's it's entirely for simplicity's sake, and the due date for the question before that. If you said it, yes, there's a you have to think about this, because due dates are personal. Due dates are for a specific employee. So that you would have, most of the time, most people would share the general calendar, company calendar, as it were, with the company's, if there are, vacations at certain days, you would add to that the particular vacations, bank holidays, etc., and it is on a person-to-person basis. You wouldn't necessarily know to foresee this in advance, so the due dates would have to be taken accordingly. So the purchasing team does its thing, buys the table that Mark Britton asked for, and from its point of view, again, extremely oversimplified, Mark Britton now gets the last stage, item received. If you look at the workflow over here, just before we end the workflow, just before we decide that we've done enough, we've finished it, Mark Britton gets this indication. Seemingly trivial. It has, I purposely put nothing in it. Your purchase request has been supplied. Thank you. Enjoy it. Be done. Seemingly trivial, but this is the part that brings us back to what I mentioned before, the verification. The box was delivered. Tell me that the box was delivered. In this case, I asked for it. This isn't a box that I asked to be delivered to somebody else. I asked for a table. Tell me how many of you haven't seen yourself request a computer or a laptop or a bag or even a car. I've seen it happen, and it's misplaced. It's given to some other John Smith. And from the purchasing point of view, they did their job. They bought it. Somebody signed for it, and that's enough. And from your point of view, sitting and waiting, and you don't know why it didn't happen. If you get this email, this is the closing of the loop. This is the verification. You get this email so that if you did get it, then you can say thank you very much. And if you didn't get it, this is your chance to jump up and shout out, hey, I didn't get it. You can't close my purchase request just yet. Let me see if there are any last minute questions. No, we're not going to be showing today the code online. I'll share it with in the publishing with anybody that would like. The workflow also available to anybody that would like to have a look at it. Outgoing email size. Yes, in this case we sent it out to a bundle of people. You would typically send it out to less. There's a cleanup process for closed workflows so that this extra data doesn't unnecessarily build up. And that's pretty much it. I'll be publishing the content. I'll be sending out emails, the copies of the email to anybody that didn't get them. And I would like to thank you for participating in this webinar. If you have any questions or comments offline, we're always happy to hear them and receive also requests for future webinars. Thank you very much.